The illusion of defense. There exists a profound distinction between taking necessary steps and engaging in frantic self-protection. When you deeply grasp that no isolated ego exists to be guarded, your nature becomes fluid, like water. Water does not contend with the stones it encounters. It erects no barriers against the breeze. It merely glides around, above, and penetrates whatever it meets. Through this process, it gradually reshapes all things it contacts. Think about the cadence of this. Each instance you protect yourself, you are implicitly validating the idea that something requires protection. You are bolstering the mirage of being separate, the notion that you exist as a delicate persona vulnerable to harm from comments, viewpoints, or the very thoughts of others. But imagine if you simply refused to react. Imagine if, when faced with criticism, you listened with genuine inquisitiveness rather than an automatic defensive posture. What if you could perceive their words not as an assault on your cherished identity, but simply as data, as a form of feedback, or as one more ripple manifesting in the immense sea of awareness? I was once acquainted with a woman who dedicated her entire existence to justifying herself to everyone. Every decision, every selection, every inclination she had needed to be rationalized, defended, and made palatable to the spectral courtroom she held in her mind. She depleted herself in the effort to demonstrate her competence, her intelligence, and her worth. Then, one day, a fundamental change occurred. She comprehended that she had been putting herself on trial, accused of offenses that were entirely fictional. She recognized her own exhaustion, realizing she had been shielding herself from accusations that no one was genuinely leveling. The very instant she ceased her defense, something remarkable transpired. People ceased their attacks. This wasn't because the people had been altered. It was because there was no longer any target to assail. She had become like the atmosphere, expansive and clear, unbothered by the storms that pass through it. This fragile ego we spend our lives defending is not a concrete thing. It is a construct. It is an idea of me built from a lifetime of experiences, memories, beliefs, and societal conditioning. From childhood, we are taught to build and polish this identity. We are defined by our name, our family, our accomplishments, our job, our possessions, and our belief systems. This collection of labels becomes the self we present to the world and, more importantly, the self we believe ourselves to be. Because this self is just a collection of concepts, it is inherently unstable. It relies on external validation to maintain its structure. It needs praise, agreement, and respect to feel real. Consequently, criticism is perceived not as a differing opinion, but as a mortal threat. The act of defense is the ego's primary survival mechanism. When one of its core beliefs is challenged, when someone questions our intelligence, our integrity, or our choices, the entire structure feels like it's under attack. The body's ancient fight or flight system, designed to protect us from physical predators, is hijacked for psychological survival. The sudden rush of adrenaline, the tightening in the chest, the heat rising in the face. This is a physiological reaction to a perceived threat against an idea. You're not defending a fact. You're defending a story you tell about yourself. This is why we take the bait. It's not a conscious choice. It's a conditioned, unconscious reflex. The criticism acts as a hook that snags on a pre-existing insecurity. If someone accuses you of being incompetent, it only stings if, deep down, A part of you already fears that you might be. The external comment activates the internal doubt. If someone were to walk up to you and earnestly accuse you of being a 20-foot-tall purple giraffe, you would feel no defensiveness. You wouldn't argue. You would likely feel amusement or concern for their well-being. Their words have no power because there is no internal hook for them to latch onto. You have zero internal doubt about whether you are a purple giraffe. Defensiveness is a flashing neon sign pointing directly to our own hidden insecurities. The woman in the story is a powerful parable of this wasted life energy. She was trapped in a performance for an invisible jury. This jury is a phantom, a composite of internalized parental voices, long-dead teachers, cultural expectations, and the imagined judgments of peers. She was shadow boxing, exhausting herself in a fight against ghosts. Her liberation did not come from winning the trial. It came from realizing the trial itself was an illusion. The judge, the jury, and the prosecutor were all parts of her own mind. The moment she withdrew her energy, the moment she stopped participating in the imaginary drama, the courtroom vanished. When you stop feeding the drama starves. This is the path to peace. You don't need to win the fight. You just need to drop the sword. The nature of criticism and the projection of others, you must understand that most of what we perceive as an attack is merely other people voicing their own inner turmoil, their own anxiety, and their own desperate attempts to feel correct about something in a universe that frequently feels chaotic. When an individual criticizes you, they are almost always revealing more about their own inner state than they are about your reality. The man who labels you as lazy is often deeply afraid of his own potential for restfulness. The woman who charges you with being selfish is frequently grappling with her own unacknowledged needs and the guilt surrounding them. The person who assails your life choices is commonly insecure about their own. But when you internalize these projections, when you mount a defense against them, you get caught up in their confusion. You engage in a choreography of shared delusion, where both parties forget they are merely enacting roles in a grander cosmic play. What might occur if you simply exited that dance? What if you declined to participate in the game of offense and defense? This does not imply becoming detached or uncaring. It means understanding that authentic strength doesn't originate from erecting fortifications, but from having no fortifications that require maintenance. True safety is found not in guarding a specific viewpoint, but in having no rigid viewpoint to guard. Let's dissect this concept of projection more deeply. It is a fundamental mechanism of the ego. The ego, this constructed self, cannot tolerate certain aspects of reality. It has a shadow, a collection of all the traits, impulses, and feelings that we have been taught are bad, unworthy, or unacceptable. We disown these parts of ourselves. We repress them, pushing them down into the unconscious. But they do not disappear. Instead, we project them outward. We see them in other people. Consider the man who calls you lazy. Perhaps he was raised in a family where worth was measured exclusively by productivity. Idle hands are the devil's workshop. His entire identity, his sense of being a good person, is built upon being relentlessly busy. Stillness, for him, is not just rest. It is unconsciously terrifying. It brings up the suppressed fear that if he stops, he is worthless. When he sees you resting or working at a different pace, it triggers this deep, unresolved terror. He cannot face this terror in himself, so he experiences it as anger at you. By labeling you lazy, he reassures his own ego that he is the productive one, the correct one. He isn't talking about you at all. He is having a loud public argument with his own shadow, or the woman who accuses you of being selfish. She may have spent her entire life in a caretaking role, taught that her own needs must always come last. To be good means to be a martyr, to sacrifice oneself for others. When she sees you clearly stating a need, setting a boundary, or practicing self-care, it enrages her. Why? Because it illuminates the cage she has built for herself. It represents a freedom she desperately craves, but has been conditioned to believe is wrong. She cannot express her own needs without feeling overwhelming guilt, so she attacks you for expressing yours. She is not angry at your selfishness. She is angry at her own self-denial. When you take these projections personally, you are validating their illusion. You are agreeing to their premise. By defending yourself, I am not lazy, I just finished a huge project. You are accepting the terms of their delusion. You have stepped onto their stage and agreed to play the role of the accused. The dance of mutual delusion begins, a pointless back and forth where no one is listening and everyone is just trying to protect their own ego construct. Stepping out of that dance means refusing the role. You don't have to argue. You don't have to counterattack. You don't even have to accept their criticism. You simply recognize it for what it is, their story, their confusion, their pain. You can respond with a neutral, I understand you see it that way, or even just silence. You are refusing to provide the wall for their ball to bounce off of. The attack, having nothing to land on, simply dissipates. Think about this paradox. The more frantically you attempt to safeguard your image, your reputation, and your idea of yourself, the more fragile and exposed you actually become. You are like someone trying to carry water in a sieve. The more desperately you grip it, the faster it drains away. But when you cease grasping, when you relinquish the need to manage others' perceptions of you, you find something profound. You are already whole. You have always been whole. The acceptance you are hunting for, the validation you crave, the respect you demand, none of it can add a single thing to the truth of what you are. Cultivating non-resistance. This state of non-resistance is not passive or weak. It is an active, moment-to-moment practice of disidentification. It is the conscious choice to stop identifying with the fragile ego construct. How then do we cultivate this ability to be like water or like space? The first and most powerful tool is the pause. The moment you feel the sting of criticism, the heat of defensiveness rising in your chest, the impulse to counterattack, stop, do nothing. Insert a deliberate gap between the stimulus, their words, and your habitual response. In this precious gap, your freedom lies. In this space, you can move from unconscious reaction to conscious response. Take one deep breath. Simply observe the physical sensations in your body. Notice the tight jaw, the rapid heartbeat, the knot in your stomach. Observe them with curiosity as pure energy, not as a command to act. By observing the feeling without becoming the feeling, you reclaim your power. The second practice is to deploy genuine curiosity. This is a conversational superpower. Your ego wants to yell, "How dare you? You're wrong." Instead, try asking, "That's an interesting perspective. Tell me more about why you feel that way. Or, what did I do specifically that made you come to that conclusion? This does two revolutionary things. First, it completely disarms the attacker. They are braced for resistance, for a fight. When met with genuine, non-sarcastic curiosity, their aggression has no purchase. They are forced to shift from attack mode to explanation mode. Second, it provides you with invaluable information, not information about you, but about them. You're getting a direct look at their internal map of the world, their fears, and their projections. You're no longer a combatant, you are a researcher. The third practice is to internalize the wisdom of the Zen master's response. Is that so? When the townspeople accused him of fathering a child, his reply was a simple, "Is that so?" He then took the child. Years later, when they returned full of apologies and praise, his reply was the same. "Is that so?" He then returned the child. Let's be clear about what this means. It is not apathy. It is not agreement. "Is that so?" is the ultimate expression of radical acceptance of the present moment's reality. It is a neutral acknowledgement of what is. "You are accusing me of this." Is that so? Translation: I observe that you are currently in the act of accusing me. "You are praising me for this." Is that so? Translation: I observe that you are currently in the act of praising me. He remained utterly free because his internal state, his identity, was not tied to their opinions. He was not defensive when attacked, nor was he inflated when praised. He knew that what he truly was could not be touched by their words, their opinions, or the temporary storms of human drama. This practice of non-resistance effectively starves the ego. The ego thrives on conflict. It loves a good fight, the resistance, the defense. These are the very things that prove to the ego that it exists. It needs an other to define itself against. When you refuse to provide that other, the ego doesn't know what to do. The more desperately you try to protect your image, the more you are reinforcing the belief that this image is both you and fragile. You become a full-time, round-the-clock security guard for a phantom. It is an exhausting, impossible job. When you stop trying to control how others see you, you discover a remarkable truth. You are already complete. The validation you were chasing was a mirage. The approval you were seeking was like asking for a glass of water while already standing in the middle of an ocean. You are already what you were seeking, appropriate action versus ego-driven reaction. Now, you might be thinking, what about justice? What about standing up for what is right? If I never defend myself, won't people just walk all over me? Won't tyranny and abuse triumph? These are vital questions, and they lead us to the most critical and nuanced distinction, the vast difference between personal defense and appropriate response. There is a gulf between protecting a fragile ego and protecting what genuinely needs protection. When you cease defending the self, you do not become a passive doormat. On the contrary, you become truly responsive. You begin to act from a place of clarity rather than reactivity. You make moves based on wisdom, not on wounded pride. Let's examine the two different modes. The reactor acts from a place of woundedness. Their internal monologue sounds like, "You hurt me. You can't say that. I have to prove you wrong and put you in your place." The energy is hot, tight, fast, and intensely personal. The goal is to win, to punish, and to protect the me. This response is rooted in fear and the illusion of separation. The warrior acts from a place of clarity. Their internal monologue sounds like, "This situation is out of alignment. A falsehood has been stated or a boundary has been crossed. Action is required to restore truth or safety." The energy is cool, grounded, spacious, and impersonal. The goal is to resolve and to protect the whole, be it the truth, the community, or a principle. This response is rooted in wisdom and connection. Let's apply this. Imagine someone is spreading damaging lies about you at work. The reactor's response? You fire off a furious reply-all email detailing every way they are wrong. You gossip about them to coworkers, trying to rally people to your side. Your actions are frantic, emotional, and all about me and my reputation. You have entered the drama, and now you're just another source of chaos. The warrior's response: you pause. You feel the sting of the lie, the anger, the fear. You breathe. You let the personal emotional wave pass through you without acting on it. Then, from a place of clarity, you assess the situation. This falsehood could harm the project and mislead the team. The truth needs to be present. You then take calm, strategic action. You might schedule a one-on-one meeting with the person. You might present the factual data to your manager, correcting the record without malice. You state the truth clearly, simply, and without the emotional charge of personal defense. You're not trying to win. You are trying to serve the truth. Here's another example. Setting a boundary with a family member who is verbally abusive. The reactor's response: you can't talk to me like that. You're always such a jerk. I hate you. This is a counterattack. It is just more of the same defensive, aggressive energy. It solves nothing and only escalates the conflict. The warrior's response, in a calm, firm voice: I am not willing to be spoken to in this way. I can hear that you are upset, but I am ending this conversation now. We can talk again later when you are ready to speak respectfully. This is not an attack. It is a clear, impersonal, and non-negotiable boundary. It is not based on "you hurt my feelings." It is based on the universal principle of respect. You're not defending your ego. You are upholding a standard. The warrior's action possesses infinitely more power because it is not diluted by the frantic, leaky energy of the ego. It is solid. It comes from that place of no fixed position to defend, which paradoxically makes the position of truth, of respect, unassailable. Let me share something that may sound radical. Most of the things you believe you need to defend yourself against are not actually happening. They are occurring in your imagination. They are happening in the stories you tell yourself about what other people's words mean, what their actions imply about you. You construct an entire drama in your mind, casting yourself as the victim and them as the villain, and then you wear yourself out fighting this imaginary battle. Meanwhile, the other person might not even be thinking about you. They might just be having a bad day, expressing their own internal confusion, or just being human in all the messy, imperfect ways that humans are. But even when someone is genuinely criticizing you, even when they are actively trying to hurt or diminish you, your refusal to defend does not make their attack stronger. It renders it powerless. Think about it. If you throw a tennis ball against a solid brick wall, it rebounds with equal force. But if you throw that same ball into the vast, open sky, it just keeps going until its energy dissipates into nothing. When you refuse to be the wall, when you become the space instead, the attack has nowhere to land. It cannot find purchase. It cannot create an impact. This is not weakness. This is the ultimate unassailable strength. The strength of non-resistance. This is the strength of the sky, which is never wounded by the violent storms that pass through it. This is the strength of the deep ocean, which is never diminished by the chaotic waves that rise and fall on its surface. And here is the beautiful part. When you stop defending yourself, you subconsciously give other people permission to stop attacking. When you refuse to play the game of combat, you create a new open space. This space allows for genuine communication, for real understanding, and for the kind of connection that is utterly impossible when everyone is barricaded behind their own defensive walls. I remember once watching two friends get into a heated argument over politics. One was fiercely defending his position, while the other was aggressively attacking it. Back and forth they went like two boxers in a ring. Each counter-argument was just a new wall, built higher and thicker. Each one became more entrenched in their own righteousness. Neither of them was actually listening. They were just reloading, waiting for their turn to speak, waiting for their turn to launch the next weapon. But what if one of them had simply paused, taken a breath, and said, "You know, I can hear how strongly you feel about this, and I can tell you, see things very differently than I do. Help me understand why this is so important to you. What's your perspective?" What if, instead of defending their own position, they had become genuinely curious about the others? The entire dynamic would have shattered in an instant. The battlefield would have transformed into a meeting ground. Instead of enemies in combat, they would have become fellow human travelers comparing notes on the journey. This is the magic that happens when you stop defending. You create the possibility for real dialogue, for a genuine meeting of minds, for the kind of exchange that actually changes people, rather than just reinforcing the armor they already wear. But the deepest reason to never defend yourself has nothing to do with tactics or strategy, or even with having better relationships. The deepest reason is that the entire act of defense is based on a profound, fundamental misunderstanding of what you are. You are not a thing that can be threatened. You are not an object that can be damaged. You are the awareness in which all experiences, all thoughts, all feelings, all sensations arise and pass away. You are the consciousness that observes the entire play without ever being touched by it. When someone criticizes you, when they attack your character or question your motives, they are not interacting with you. They are interacting with their idea of you. They are arguing with a mental image, a conceptual model of you that exists only in their mind. But that image is not you. It's just a collection of thoughts in their head, no more real or threatening than a shadow cast upon a wall. The real you, the awareness that is perceiving these words right now, the consciousness that has been the constant silent witness through all the changes and phases of your life, that you cannot be defended because it cannot be attacked. It is like space itself, vast, open, clear, and fundamentally untouchable. The ultimate reality of unity. This is what the great sages and mystics mean when they speak of the self with a capital S. They're not talking about the small self, the ego me made of personal history, preferences, and fears. They're talking about the boundless self that is one and the same with the source of all existence. When you realize, not just intellectually but in your very bones, that this is what you truly are, the entire need for defense simply evaporates. We defend ourselves because we operate from the core belief that we are separate, isolated entities. We believe we are fragile selves that must protect our borders against a hostile and other world. But this separation is the primary illusion. It is a trick of consciousness that allows the universe to play a grand game of hide and seek with itself. In reality, there is only one self, appearing as many. There is only one boundless consciousness expressing itself through all the billions of apparently separate beings. The person who annoys you, who challenges you, who seems to oppose you, that person is simply another wave in the same ocean as you. They are another expression, another disguise of the same underlying reality. When you truly see this, you also stop attacking others because you realize there is no other to attack. The mystics have always known this. They speak of the fundamental unity that underlies all apparent diversity. They see through the game of separation, the illusion of isolated egos battling one another for position and supremacy. When you attack another, you are, on a deeper level, attacking yourself. When another attacks you, they are attacking themselves. This is why defense is ultimately absurd and futile. It is like the right hand trying to protect itself from the left hand. It is like one wave in the ocean building a fortress to defend itself against another wave, forgetting that they are both expressions of the exact same water. When this understanding truly dawns, when you see that there is no other, that everyone and everything is a mask worn by the one self, then defense becomes not only unnecessary, but utterly impossible. How can you defend against yourself? How can you protect the ocean from the ocean? And so we arrive at the profound paradox that lies at the heart of all spiritual wisdom. The only way to be truly and completely invulnerable is to have nothing to protect. The way to be truly unbreakably strong is to offer no resistance. The way to be truly, absolutely free is to defend nothing. This does not make you a pushover. This makes you like water, which is the softest, most yielding thing in the world, and yet, over time, it can wear away the hardest stone. It makes you like space, which offers no resistance to the planets, stars, and galaxies that move through it, and yet is never scarred, torn, or damaged by any of it. When you begin to live this way, when you move through the world without the constant, exhausting need to defend, justify, and explain yourself, people will notice something different about you. There will be a quality of ease, of freedom, of an unshakable and quiet peace that draws others to you like flowers turning toward the sun. You become, without trying, a sanctuary for other people. You become a space where they can finally lay down their own weapons, their own heavy armor, their own desperate need to prove themselves. This is the incredible gift you give to the world when you stop defending yourself. You demonstrate by your very presence that it is possible to live without armor. You show that one can walk through this life with a completely open heart, to be fully and messily human without being constantly at war with other humans. And in the end, isn't this what we all long for? To be truly accepted, to be deeply seen, to be loved, not for our accomplishments, not for our sharp arguments, not for the self we have constructed, but for what we truly are beneath all the roles, the masks, and the protective layers. When you stop defending yourself, you finally give this gift to yourself. You stop requiring the world to validate you. You stop making your own peace and happiness dependent on winning an argument, changing someone's mind, or getting their approval. you discover that you already are the very thing you were seeking. You are already acceptable. You are already worthy. You are already complete, not because of anything you have done or achieved, but simply because of what you are at the deepest, most fundamental level of your being. From this place of wholeness, from this recognition of your true boundless nature, you can finally engage with life fully, freely, and joyfully. You can speak your truth without needing anyone to agree with it. You can act according to your deepest values without needing anyone's permission. You can be completely, authentically yourself without needing anyone to understand. This is the ultimate freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to be what you are without apology, without defense, and without the constant gnawing anxiety of whether you're measuring up to some imaginary, impossible standard. So the next time someone criticizes you, the next time you feel that old familiar burning urge to defend, to explain, to justify, remember this. You are not what they think of you. You are not even what you think of you. You are the vast, silent, peaceful awareness in which all of these thoughts and opinions arise and pass away like clouds drifting through an endless, open sky. Rest in that awareness. Be that sky. Let the weather of human drama move through you, but do not be disturbed by it.